You're listening to the Fish on Friday podcast. I'm Lucian Leone, and I'm joined by my regular co-host, Robert Moore Jumanville. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, Lucian.
And today, our guest for this podcast is Craig Pohl. And Craig, I think I can get your title right. Is it Director of Catechism and Evangelization for the Diocese of Lansing? Is that it?
Yeah, I mean it's a form of it. Yeah. So simply put, just director of evangelization. But I do chair the department of evangelization and catechesis. But it's more practically speaking, just director of evangelization.
Great. Well, thank you, Craig, for joining us today. And the reason I asked Craig to be on is I'm aware that many, because 2025 is a Jubilee year, and the theme that Pope Francis has selected is Pilgrims of Hope. Many dioceses around the world are doing initiatives related to the Jubilee year. And not too long ago, the Diocese of Lansing launched their website where it had listed all the activities that are planned for the diocese. So, Craig, could you just kind of give us some background on what the diocese is planning to do this year as a part of Jubilee 2025?
Sure. As far as I know, we weren't aware that there was going to be a big jubilee until maybe about 9 months before it came. And so we had already been tooling together this program from Bishop Boyer called Be My Witnesses. And so you're probably familiar with his online weekly videos going through the different aspects of discipleship. So Be My Witnesses is actually a part of our Jubilee effort where Bishop is just guiding us through different challenges and teachings on being a disciple. So that's one. And all of this stuff, by the way, you can grab right off of our homepage. You can find the Be My Witnesses stuff with scrolling down just a little bit. You scroll down a little bit farther, and you're actually going to get to the Jubilee year 2025 information. You click on that, and you're going to be looking at about 11 pages of information, really in depth and well laid out about what is a Jubilee year and how can I obtain an indulgence? What can I do during this Jubilee year? So in our diocese, we have designated, Bishop Boyer, I should say, has designated the cathedral as a place where you can visit um, and obtain that indulgence. So that's one of the things that we've sort of put on the table here for the Jubilee. But one of the biggest efforts that we're pulling together is this all diocesan mass and procession that's going to start. It's going to be right there in Lansing at Jackson Field on June 21st, and it's going to be on the eve of Corpus Christi. So it'll be the Saturday. And the whole idea is really in the thrust of the Jubilee year to gather all of our people, as many as we can. I think you Jackson Field can fit 9 to 10,000 people. So really excited about that, and we're actually going to have mass with all of our priests and all of our deacons and as many people as we can gather, and then we're going to conclude by processing out onto Michigan Avenue and coming straight up, and it's right there. You're going to be walking right up to the Capitol, and the cathedral happens to be right next to the Capitol. So we're going to kind of bring it around and end the procession at the cap or at the cathedral, where you can obtain a plenary indulgence there. But because we're going to have so many people coming all at once, excuse me, we won't be able to move potentially 9 to 10,000 people through the cathedral at a reasonable pace. So we'll have the Blessed Sacrament there, and people can stay and pray. But we'll also have a bunch of food trucks and kind of a celebratory environment on the Capitol lawn to just kind of conclude that Corpus Christi procession. Uh, Leading up to June 21st, for 2 weeks, we're going to be holding in all of our deaneries. So we have 10 deaneries. We're going to be holding 40 hours adoration campaigns. Now, that's to really try to pull all of our communities into the spirit of this Jubilee year, with the Eucharist being very central. And one of the ideas is, because it's a Jubilee, it's a celebration all year for us of our faith and, all the good things that we enjoy as Christians. It's actually going to be a time where people are going to be asked to pray for those who aren't with us, like by name, really distinctly. Use that holy hour or whatever amount of time you can reasonably make in your own parish during the 40 hours to pray for the people of the church, to pray for lost loved ones, those who have wandered away from the church, and then to pray for people in our own communities, within our own parish boundaries, that have no real reference for the church, and to just give God permission to come into our communities and really give us the grace to welcome everybody into the Catholic Church. And so that's really a lot of the thrust behind that 40 hours and the diocesan mass and procession.
Well, that's great. And it really sounds like the bishop and the staff there in the chancery are really trying to take a lot of what was done during the Eucharistic revival period and make sure we continue that as we go forward, and kind of connecting the Eucharistic revival with the Jubilee year, really focusing on the Eucharist, which I think is a wonderful approach.
Yeah, you nailed it right there. The original inspiration for the Eucharistic 40 hours and the procession and the Mass did actually come as kind of a follow-up to the Eucharistic Congress this past summer. And when we thought about, uh, the Eucharistic Congress said, now this is the missionary period of the Congress. Like, this next year is, we're sending people out, and we kind of were bending our brains, going, how do you actually be missionary with the Eucharist? And so these are the distinct ways. We're like, well, first of all, Eucharistic procession is very out there in the world. It's meant to be a witness to those around us, that we believe that this is Jesus Christ here in the Eucharist, and all are welcome to come along. And then the prayer time itself, we're just thinking, well, what can we do, to use this missionary period of the Eucharistic Congress? Well, we can actually use our time before the Blessed Sacrament in a missionary way by praying for those who are effectively lost, or who might be struggling in our church in various ways. So we're really excited about kind of linking in the spirit of the Eucharistic Congress with the spirit of the Jubilee. I really do think that we're gonna see graces that we couldn't have choreographed the results of this, because let's just face it, prayer works. When you pray, God moves, and he does surprising things. So I've been telling people, buckle up when we get our whole diocese around this effort and we start mobilizing in a missionary spirit around the Eucharist. Buckle up. God's going to move.
So, Craig, one of the things that resonates really well with what Lucian particularly is trying to do with the Fish on Friday website and the podcasts is the procession. Sounds like an opportunity for families to come be together, and then you're doing something that's uh, drawing the whole family together, and you're actually enacting something. You're doing the procession, the food truck idea. Just it sounds like a fun thing. Lucian is a great proponent of feast days and processions, just because um, so long we've seen, especially like teens, drift away because they're in sports, and families are on their separate technologies, and so to try to encourage families together to be Catholic, it's the beginnings of the transformation of Catholic culture has got to happen in the family.
Right. So it's great you bring that up because central to these efforts in particular, but really all the efforts from the bishop, we're really trying to zero in on families. We're trying to make everything that comes out of the office is something that families will benefit from. And so
Mhm.
when we were thinking about these 40 hours and the mass and the procession and all of this stuff, we really had families at the center. Like we could not make a decision without answering the question of can families participate? And that's what I think is actually really cool about this because the procession route, I don't know if you participated in the procession back in 2018, but it was a 4 mile procession. It was awesome. The people who did it loved it, but a lot of families were like, I'm not sure I can do that. And me with my young family at the time, I'm like, yeah, I don't know how we're gonna pull that off. But this one, Lugnut Stadium to the cathedral, is literally zero point 0.7 miles.
Yeah.
So this is very doable for families. And then we've got this space on the Capitol lawn afterward where it's just going to be a celebration. We've got food there for people. People can just throw out a blanket or whatever and just kind of hang out. So yes, all that to say, this is going to be a very family friendly experience. And one thing, just as a point of inspiration for people, um, a lot of parishes have started hosting family Eucharistic holy hours. So within the 40-hour campaign at a given parish, parishes will be encouraged to actually have like a space, an hour or two, where it can be, this is for young families. And one of the reasons we encourage that is because if you've ever brought your young family to Eucharistic adoration and there are other people trying to pray, it can be pretty distracting for those other people because the kids, kids are kids and it's a quiet church and it can be very distracting. So if you create this space where this is the period where you can bring your young family and if they're not making noise and distracting the people there, then you've done it wrong because that's really what this time is to bring them there. And I
Right.
know for us, we had our kids coloring these little pictures and at the end of the holy hour, we had our kids take their pictures that they were coloring and place it at the foot of the altar where the Blessed Sacrament is.
Wow.
And it was just a cool little period where it's like you can give them a whole different experience of adoration if you kind of carve that time out for them.
That's fabulous.
That is fabulous. Oh, Craig, there's one other part of the Jubilee year that the of Lansing is doing that I really want you to just chat about for just a minute, which is fasting from social media. Could you just kind of summarize what that recommendation is and tell us what the thinking is around that?
Sure. So this actually comes straight from the Apostolic Penitentiary for the decree on gaining the indulgence for 2025. Jeremy Priest, as I mentioned in the pre-show, he's really the expert here at the Diocesan Center on all of these liturgical things. But what he noticed was this. And I'll just read the quote. The Jubilee plenary indulgence can also be obtained through initiatives that put into practice in a concrete and generous way the spirit of penance, which is, in a sense, the soul of the Jubilee. In particular, the penitential nature of Friday can be rediscovered through abstaining in a spirit of penance, at least for one day of the week, from futile distractions, real but also virtual distractions. For example, the use of media and or social networks. So this, I really do think the Vatican, they're they're aware enough of how big of a problem this is. I was going to use the word scourge. Like it, we're completely unprepared for what social media has done to our culture, in particular with young people and families. I mean, I see that meme going around in social media, of course, where you've got in 1950 the family sitting around the table and they've got their hands folded at the supper table, and now in 2020, 24, you've got kids instead of their hands folded, you got the whole everybody in the family with their phone in their hands, and that's a little extreme, but it's not far from the truth. Go to any restaurant. look at any families that are sitting around the table. People are just on their phones constantly. So yeah, this is a serious issue, and I really applaud the Vatican for saying, just naming it, like, here's something we can abstain from that we think would bring good in people's lives.
That's awesome. So, Robert, we're going to have to make it our mission to let all the Catholics in the Diocese of Lansing know about this, because I think it is all the initiatives that you're doing for the Jubilee year I think are really powerful, and I love the 40 hours of Eucharistic adoration and the Eucharistic procession. This is something we all can be doing every Friday, and you've just inspired me, Craig, to make sure that I'm fasting on Fridays from unnecessary use of social media, because I have to say it's not. I see it, with my grandkids as well, but for me, even I can be really tempted to just watch these stupid YouTube videos that, they're not. It's not like porn or anything. But it's a waste of time. And if I could just stop watching that video and maybe take that 20 minutes to pray, my life would be different.
Yeah. Oh, the whole industry, the whole social media industry, it is widely known that they employed the tactics that casinos actually employ. They used all their research and actually tooled it in. And so the the whole idea of social media and how they actually make money is by sucking you in and making it so that you just hop from one thing to the next. So if you aren't really drawn to it, then I don't know, maybe your wiring isn't the same as everybody else's, because that's really they're going off of the science of the brain here, and
Yeah.
they're manipulating it, they're exploiting it.
Father Chaz at St. John's, I remember him talking about having a 30-minute a week uh, you know, checkpoint on his social media. And then if he went over and he realized it, then he had to pay, he had to give to some charity. And so, I mean, it might be that, that we're so unaware of how addicting it is, Craig, right? That if we try to say like, okay, I have to limit my social media, and you can actually put that on your phone. I think you can
Hmm.
actually, like in an iPhone, and most phones you can put a limit on it. But I mean, to say, I don't know, 15 minutes a day sounds realistic to me to be doing email or things that I really need to do. And then if it goes over, then I better know that I've gone over at least.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's again, one of the things that I've come to learn is this snuck up on us. Like no one, when at the advent of the iPhone, no one predicted that it would cause such an issue. And Lucian, you were mentioning the anxious generation. This research is all bearing out. Yeah, we've got a real problem now because of how social media is now being used in schools and among peer groups and students, and bullying is a very real thing. And as if it wasn't bad enough when you were in the class and you were getting bullied, now it's happening 24 hours a day outside of class, and everyone's in on it and everyone's laughing. I mean, it's a it's a serious deal, and it's understandable why kids are having anxiety disorders and depression and all of this stuff. And I'm sure directly related to these phones and social media.
Yeah. Well, and as John, and just so people can see it, here's the book, because Robert and I and Kimberly are talking about this book a little bit, and we'll be doing hopefully some virtual book discussions around it. But he gives all the research, Dr. Haight does, and it's compelling and overwhelming that it started in the 90s, where families started to be more concerned about the physical threats outside, so that they brought their kids in and they basically put them in their rooms where they spent all this time on their laptops and then eventually on their phones. And and generally speaking, parents don't realize that the threats that these kids are exposed to virtually are far greater than the physical threats that they might be exposed to if they were out in the neighborhood playing. So
Yeah.
there really has been this cultural shift that hopefully we can start to get families to realize not only, yes, I've really got to limit my time with my kids, especially on their devices, but also how can I kind of build back in that kind of fun family time where the kids are learning to kind of become resilient and playing and exploring. And so it's kind of like the positive side, I think, is just as important as, yeah, it's really important that you limit the use of these technologies with your kids, but you need to replace that. I think, as Dr. Haight would say, with helping the kids learn how to kind of just navigate life and kind of grow up. And so lots we can talk about there. Craig, I hope you'll be part of our conversations. This has been great. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Robert. You've
Thank
been
you.
listening to Fish on Friday. I'm Lucian Leone. Thanks for listening.